Good afternoon. My name is Christina Cameron, and I'm speaking to you from Ottawa, Canada, on the unceded traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. I want to thank Professor Stresser for inviting me to share my thoughts today on a half century of World Heritage practice, and particularly on the contribution made by Bernd van Drost. As head of Canada's delegation to the World Heritage Committee, I worked quite regularly with Bernd van Drost over a number of years, and I consider him a friend and a colleague, although we didn't always necessarily agree entirely on different issues. My first direct involvement in World Heritage was in 1987, and I continued to be involved long after Bernd retired in 1999. Let me first speak broadly about the extraordinary ideas underpinning the 1972 creation of the World Heritage Convention. This international conservation agreement is unique in the sense that it includes both natural and cultural heritage places in one document, in one agreement. All other international treaties or agreements have cultural or natural heritage in separate international conventions, if you want. The World Heritage Convention is based on the concept that there is a global responsibility to identify, protect, and conserve the outstanding places of significance to everyone in the world. Now, ideas for an international convention were swirling around in the 1960s with different perspectives and different ideas on how to have where the secretariat should be located. And in fact, for World Heritage, there were three parallel conventions draft conventions circulating at the turn of 1970. And it was a bit confusing as to where it was going to land. But eventually, UNESCO stepped in and insisted that this international instrument fell within its jurisdiction. Now, you know that the World Heritage Convention is more than 50 years old today. And during the time, the concept of what is World Heritage has evolved to keep up with practices of new states parties as they joined the convention over time. And also, very importantly, to keep up with scholars, because scholarship has entrenched World Heritage studies in universities across the globe. So there is not really time to talk about all that. And what I want to focus on are specifically changes to the identification of World Heritage sites and to their conservation. The most important changes in the designation of World Heritage sites is the slow but inexorable shift from narrow definitions of either a natural or a cultural place to considering sites that embody human interaction with the environment. Now, in that early phase of what I think of as the iconic World Heritage sites, we have places like the pyramids or the Versailles that are listed for their outstanding architecture or history. And we have places like the Galapagos Islands, or we have the many large national parks in Canada and the United States that are listed for their ecosystems and their geological contribution to our understanding of the globe. So from that starting point, new themes have been added to illustrate a wider range of values, leading to such representative places as industrial sites, heritage canals, volcanic sites, boreal forests, and so forth. So that shift from iconic to representative, I think, and the wider range of values is an important change. But the most significant change occurred in 1992 with the introduction of the anthropological themes as part of the global strategy for a representative, balanced, and credible World Heritage List, and also with the adoption in the same timeframe of the cultural landscapes category. In particular, the cultural landscapes category has opened a path for recognizing places of human interaction with the environment, and has led especially to the recognition of intangible associative values that are associated with each of those places, And the first one to be listed for that, or relisted in fact, was Tongariro National Park in New Zealand, relisted in 1993 as both a natural site and a cultural landscape. But the concept has been further developed in the 2010s when the World Heritage Committee was challenged to deal with a nomination which was led by the Indigenous peoples, a nomination from Canada. The proponents of this boreal forest site, called Pimachioan-Aki, called for the recognition of the indissoluble bond between the people and the land. Now, the Indigenous peoples themselves are very clear about their relationship with the land. They say, and repeat often, "We are the land is us." So after years of discussion about the concept as it related to Pimachioan-Aki, the site was eventually inscribed on the World Heritage List in 2018. And this inscription is important because it confirms the eligibility of that unbreakable bond between cultural and natural heritage at some sites. And it must be acknowledged, nonetheless, that there are lingering wishes from some states' parties to separate cultural and natural heritage sites, that it's not, the Indigenous peoples have led in this discussion. And while listing is important, the World Heritage Convention essentially is about the protection and conservation of these sites. A key conservation tool is the World Heritage List in Danger. As foreseen in the convention, the in danger list is meant to be a mechanism for identifying threats and then mobilizing funds and human resources to overcome them. Over time, the procedures for doing so have really improved, but we have to say that there remains a very passionate state party resistance to having a site from their country inscribed on the World Heritage List, or World Heritage in Danger List, and I would include Canada in that resistance. Such refusal, of course, leads to ongoing deterioration of some World Heritage sites without addressing the problems. An important advance, nonetheless, adopted during Berndt leadership in the face of strong state party opposition is the site monitoring system, which is known as periodic reporting, a system that has become routine now, which is a very good thing, and has become a bit fossilized and needs a bit of renewal. What is still missing is a clear set of principles for World Heritage conservation or a World Heritage Charter. This idea was first proposed in 2001, but was eventually rejected by the World Heritage Committee, which argued that conservation principles in each state party provide adequate guidance to conserve the sites, although personally I think that notion can be challenged in some countries, and in many countries, in fact. And in the context of these key changes to the identification and conservation of World Heritage sites, I want to highlight Bernd von Drost's important influence. In 1976, he was the first UNESCO staff person to volunteer to support the work of the convention. From the outset, this important flagship program was not actually recognized as such. No one predicted it would be as popular as it is, and therefore it was chronically underfunded and understaffed by UNESCO. At the beginning, no one predicted the popularity of the World Heritage Convention, nor a World Heritage List of over 1,000 sites, and it's currently at 1,223 properties and no end in sight. Coming from a forestry background, Bernd was a passionate spokesperson for the conservation and protection of the world's outstanding natural properties as his first priority. But as his responsibilities grew, he brought this energy to his greatest project, namely the creation of the World Heritage Center in 1992. By doing so, he brought together natural and cultural heritage expertise under one roof within UNESCO, and he built a team of regional and technical professionals. And he also reported directly to the Director General, at that time Federico Maior, thereby avoiding the appearance of bias towards one sector or another, the science sector or the cultural sector within UNESCO. And ultimately, the creation of the center makes the point that the work of World Heritage is intersectorial. Berndt also envisaged the center as a World Heritage Institute, a semi-autonomous body within UNESCO. In addition to its administrative role to support the World Heritage Convention itself, he saw this institute as a place to house 100 leading scientists and experts to conduct research and produce scientific publications. For sure, Berndt's dream was really ambitious and it was not fulfilled. But the scientists were to have access to the world's largest collection of books on art, architecture, natural history, and so forth, in order to provide a scientific basis for decision making. So this was fundamentally a strong idea. But as I indicated, it has met with staunch opposition from within UNESCO itself and from some states' parties who opposed the creation of a semi-autonomous entity. In his 2010 interview for the World Heritage Oral Archives, the late Francesco Francione, who was an international lawyer, explained that he got involved in World Heritage just after the creation of the center by the Director General. He received an invitation from the Italian government and the French government to meet in Paris to discuss the concern of these countries about this sort of privatization of the World Heritage Center. They were worried that it would diminish state party control over World Heritage. Francione was asked to provide legal arguments to prevent the center from becoming a creature of its own with too much autonomy. As I've said, in this period of the 1990s, it was a decade full of dialogue and innovation, including cultural landscapes. The NARA document here, you see the NARA meeting, which brought together quite a few experts, I think 44 experts from different countries, and to talk about authenticity and what that meant, and also the global strategy to achieve a globally balanced representation of World Heritage on the World Heritage List. So this period of the 1990s was really a very rich period. In his 2007 interview for the World Heritage Oral Archives, Berndt recalls his surprise when Poland proposed that the first inscription on the World Heritage List should be Auschwitz. Coming from his perspective, that the World Heritage List was intended to celebrate the positive achievements of humanity, Berndt, in his interview, clearly acknowledged that he realized that human rights, tolerance, and intercultural dialogue brought an unexpected dimension to the convention. In a prescient remark, he explained that this was his first encounter with the real work of the convention, that it basically had more to do with an overall political aspect and ethical dimension of a general nature rather than the protection of a single site. The issue of moral and human rights has been a continuous thread in World Heritage discourse. Its most recent manifestation is the decades-long debate about the eligibility of sites of recent conflicts and other negative issues. Memorialization of such places are inherently political, as we all understand, and they can risk creating further dissonance unless done inclusively through extensive community and stakeholder consultation. So after years of discussing these sites of conflict and genocide, the committee took a landmark decision in January 2023 to allow their inscription under strict conditions. So those conditions that the committee requires are future nominations must include accurate text to avoid distortion of memories. The future nominations must show proof of serious efforts to ensure inclusive and effective participation of all potentially affected stakeholders. They must include multidimensional interpretation strategies that explain the full meaning of the sites, must include proof of reconciliation initiatives, and demonstrate that the nomination is not interrupting the process of dialogue and reconciliation. This is a wonderful achievement, and I urge that they should be considered to be entered into the World Heritage Operational Guidelines, because for these principles to be enforceable, they must not wither in forgotten decision documents at UNESCO, but must be given life in the operational guidelines which direct the work of the committee. Bernd, you've been in the thick of debates in the 1990s, the most fruitful period in the development of World Heritage. You've been a fearless champion of conservation within UNESCO and with state party diplomatic representatives, which I know has not always been easy. Today marks the donation of your archives to Krems University of Continuing Education in Austria. I have no doubt that your record of visits to World Heritage sites, your private reports, your so-called top secret documents on the World Heritage Institute, and your personal perspectives on all sorts of issues will encourage research by a new generation of scholars and practitioners. Thank you, Bernd, for your long service in the field of conservation, and congratulations on this special day. Thank you.